Hunter pets have a very long and interesting history. Since there were so many changes to hunter pets over the past 5 expansions, I'm only going to mention changes to pets as a whole, and only talk about individual pets if they were important to the hunter class in one way or another. In vanilla, when you tamed a new pet, it stayed whatever level you tamed it at. Taming a level 5 boar at level 60 meant you had a level 5 boar. This also allowed hunters to tame a low-level mob and use Eyes of the Beast to have it path in front of a new player like a normal creature, and wait for them to attack it to flag them for an attack and kill them. Pets had a happiness meter when your pet would do 25% more damage when happy, normal damage when normal, and 25% less damage when unhappy. If your pet was too unhappy, it would leave you and you'd lose your pet. In order to make your pet happy, you had to feed it food, but only whatever food the pet liked. Like only giving raptors meat or bears who ate pretty much anything. If you fed your pet a food it didn't like, then your pet would actually lose happiness. You only had 3 stable slots, but really only 2 because you had to keep changing out the last pet for pet skills. Basically in vanilla, hunters had the tame and train method for pets. To learn a pet skill from the wild, you needed to stable your regular pet, go out and tame a pet that knows the skill you want, and fight with it until you get the message that you have learned the new skill. Sometimes this happened immediately, sometimes only after several battles, but it only worked for certain base type skills like Bite, Claw, or Dash. For example, to get the top rank of Bite, you had to tame Morgs and LBRS. Although the oddball abilities like the 255% run speed, or the 1-point attack speed, or shadow damage could not be learned or taught. Pets had training points when they leveled up that they would spend on skills that they could learn, sort of like talent points without the tree. Pets had stat modifiers based on their family. Some pets considered offensive pets like raptors and cats had bonus points in damage, while defensive pets like gorillas and bears had points in defensive stats, and then there were well-rounded pets like hyenas or serpents that had mix. In vanilla, many pets had special abilities that were traits they had when they were actual mobs that they kept when they become pets. For example, frost wolves in Altaric Valley ran at 255% speed and could catch up to players on epic ground mounts. Mazranache the Tall Strider had the slowest run speed. It ran so slow that in PvP, a player walking away could outwalk it. Broken Tooth had a 1-second attack speed. Opposite that, you had bears that had a 2.5 or 2.55 attack speed. Lupus the Wolf attacked with shadow damage instead of physical damage. In PvE, it usually lowered his DPS, but in PvP it meant it went right through armor. Snarler the Wolf had 100 resist to all schools of magic. Fire Rocks had 115% fire resist, Syrian Rocks had 240 fire resist. Grether, a rare spider in Silphus, used to have a model of a skin of a tall strider. And most pets with mana bars in the wilds had caster stats and were weaker than most other pets. Wind serpents, dragon hawks, and a few spiders were infamous for this. Early on, some rare elite pets would keep their silver dragon crest, and some pets, like Beast from BWL, would keep their boss skull tag. Caster pets in vanilla were pets that had a mana bar and had high levels of int and spirit, which were completely useless to hunter pets, had lower levels of armor and health, and were thus inferior to normal pets. Starting with patch 1.9, all pets had base pursuit speed of 115%. There were no more slow pets, no more fast pets, no more very fast pets. They all had an average pursuit speed. With BC, all pets by now were normalized, something Blizzard had been doing little by little in vanilla. That meant no more pets with special stats like having 1-second attack speed or the 225% pursuit speed. Also, pets finally scaled off their masters, meaning as your damage went up, so did your pets. Pets did, however, still have different offensive and defensive types based on families, plus all pets now have their very own special ability. Cats, raptors, and ravengers were the highest DPS pets because they gained 10% additional damage from their family bonus, plus they actually had a focus stump special ability. Wind serpents, if you had high enough crit to supply them with unlimited focus, had the highest theoretical DPS with their lightning breath not having a cooldown. So you could have your very own caster standing next to you just spamming lightning bolt. Also, scorpions without a doubt were the best PvP pets since their special ability was a poison that stacked 5 times, making it harder for healers to dispel Viper Sting. Gorillas had Thunderstomp, the only pet to have any kind of AoE attack. And Sporebats had the special ability of being the only pet with no special ability. BC also saw the first implementation of the avoidance skill for pets. You know avoidance, right? That skill that every single pet in the entire game has that reduces AoE damage by 90% and allows you to ignore your pet in boss fights. Well, in Avoidance's first form, it just gave your pet a chance to avoid AoE damage by like 50%. Then it was changed to just straight up reducing the damage like it does today. BC was also when pets were given swimming animations, instead of just walking or teleporting in water. It was possible to tame the Grim Totem Spirit Guide, a ghost wolf model that looks exactly like one of the wolves summoned by a shaman, though the wolf was spawned creature for a quest and only existed for about 8 seconds. Tame Beast at this time was a 20-second long cast, so when hunters did to tame this guy was bring along a shaman friend to pop Bloodlust in addition to a whole bunch of other haste boosts in order to grab him in that short window of time. Later, the wolf was hotfixed to no longer be tameable, but anyone who managed to grab one before then got to keep their pet, and was one of the game's very first spirit beasts. With Wrath, training points, loyalty, and beast training were removed. Pets finally just learned their skills and they leveled up like a player. Also, the pet talent tree was introduced in addition to the ferocity, tenacity, and cunning pet classifications. Pets had a separate talent tree depending on their family. Ferocity pets had a bunch of DPS talents, tenacity had a bunch of tanking talents, and cunning had the PvP talents, along with some pretty nice DPS ones. All pets were given their very own focus dump in addition to their very own special ability, and some of the popular special abilities, like the Gorilla Thunderstomp, were added to the talent trees so all pets had the opportunity to learn them. The pet stable slot was increased from 3 slots to 4, and then later a 5th one was added to the pleasure of hunters everywhere. Pets would also now automatically become at least 5 levels lower than the hunter when tamed, instead of staying at whatever level they were. For example, if you were at level 80 and tamed a level 3 cat, before you would have to train at 77 levels to max it out. But with the new system, that cat would automatically become level 75, and you only had to level at 5 levels for it to be useful. Also, leveling a pet, those last 5 levels was still a huge pain in the ass because it was based off of 10% of your experience. Wrath also introduced exotic pets. Pets only tameable by Beast Mastery hunters with the Beast Mastery talent. The Beast Mastery talent also gave you 4 extra talent points, which was 16 levels worth of extra points, since pets only got 1 talent point every 4 levels. A bonus exotic pets had over normal pets, besides all of them looking way cooler, is that they had 2 special abilities or an upgraded ability of a previous normal pet ability. For a very short time at the beginning of the Wrath, the Rhino's special ability was essentially a Shaman's Thunderstorm, an AoE knockback. That didn't last long though. Call Pet was added, the very first implementation of the choose one of your 5 pets to use that we have today. Basically, once every 30 minutes you could switch your current pet with one of your other 4 in the stable. For a short while, the pet talent Roar of Sacrifice would work like a Pally Sack. In that, the pet would take 20% of the damage of whoever it used it on, making it a great tanking cooldown, though that was changed quickly. When they took away the Gorilla's Thunderstomp ability and gave it to the Tenacity tree, they gave Gorillas an interrupt instead. This interrupt, however, was on a 10-second cooldown, just like any other melee interrupt at the time, and could be left on autocast. The neat thing about how it used to work was that the Gorilla was programmed to only use its interrupt when its target was casting a spell, so you could safely just leave your Gorilla on a spellcaster and shut it down thanks to its auto lockout every 10 seconds. Although that too was fixed pretty quickly, and the Gorilla's interrupt was increased to a 30-second cooldown, making Gorillas pretty much useless. Cats and Scorpions were the biggest damage dealers for quite some time thanks to their dots. Scorpions still had the dot that stacked up to 5 times, and the Cat's Rake just did solid damage. Blizzard eventually nerfed the poison to no longer stack, and tweaked the Cat's Rake twice. Around the same time, they buffed the Wolf special ability that gave the hunter extra attack power. So, Wrath Raids only had 2 kinds of pets, cats at the beginning and wolves towards the end. Also, once the Scorpion nerf took effect, Crabs and Spiders became quite popular because of their ability to root. Corehounds were also pretty popular in PvP, but that wasn't because of their spell haste debuff, and more because they were used in Beast Cleave teams. For a short while, there was a bugged out quest called the Spirits of Sholzar. The Spirit of Hakalon is a ghostly, partially transparent Crocodile. The Spirit of Ata is a ghostly Hydra, and the Spirit of Kusu is a green slime, or ooze. All 3 of them are summoned as part of the daily Oracle quest, A Cleansing Song. Between patch 3.0 and patch 3.08, all 3 of these creatures could be tamed, because all 3 of them were labeled as Crocodiles. This was obviously a bug, but Blizzard let anyone who tamed one before keep it. During the later half of Wrath, pets were finally given 100% scaling from resilience. Not that many people would go for the hunter pets in competitive PvP anyway, but if they did, they'd be really hard to kill now with a resilience change. With Cataclysm, hunters could now bring 5 pets around with them at a time, and that could be called and dismissed at will. In addition, the stable was increased to hold 20 pets. New pets caught would now match the hunter's level, getting rid of leveling new pets once and for all. Pets also went under another big change. All of the pets' special abilities were changed so they no longer did extra damage, and instead either provided a buff or debuff. The only exceptions to this were Worms and Chimeras, who were given an AoE that did quite a bit of damage. Also, Corehounds were given Bloodlust. With the changed pet special abilities, pets were only brought to raids depending on if they were Ferocity, or if you really needed the buff provided by a non-Ferocity pet. Monkeys were added to the tameable list, and they had a 4-second scattershot ability that was bugged for a patch, where it worked exactly like a stun for 4 seconds. Even after the fix, hunters still use monkeys like crazy and abuse the new have 5 pets on you at all time thing to get 5 free monkey cooldowns. What hunters would do is queue up on the island where you tame monkeys, and during an arena match, they would use its special ability, abandon their pet mid-fight, not dismiss but abandon, as in losing the pet forever because it was faster than using dismiss pet, and then bring out their second monkey. Also, since buffs provided by pets lasted a minute, they would bring with them a few pets to buff their teams right before the match started. Pet switching was very common in PvP, and Blizzard did not like it one bit, especially the whole abandoning a ton of monkeys during a fight thing. Spore bats were still pretty useless for the most part. It wasn't until Mist that they were given a good buff and actually brought to raids regularly. Pet happiness was finally removed. No longer would you have to worry about having food to feed your pet to get that 25% extra damage. Not that hunters really cared all that much by this point, seeing as there was ways to increase your pet's happiness passively without ever having to feed your pet. Aggressive stance was removed. Aggressive stance, for all you Mist babies, was a pet stance that made your pet work exactly like a hostile NPC, in that it attacked anything that was close to it, whether it posed danger to you or not. Most good hunters left their pets in either passive or defensive stance, and only ever touched hostile stance if you were trying to get a rogue out of stealth, or if you were a new hunter doing a dungeon for the first time and wanted to wipe your group. They replaced aggressive stance with the assist stance, which functions exactly like defensive stance used to function before they removed aggressive, in that your pet just attacks whatever you do. Cataclysm also introduced special taming challenges for unique pets. One such notable pet is the green ghost owl Banthalos. Banthalos, like all spirit beasts, is a rare spawn. This particular pet though only spawns ridiculously high in the sky and requires clever tactics in order to aggro him and catch him. Because just tagging him and slow falling isn't enough, this dude hits hard enough to kill you well before you can tame him. So, you have to freeze trap him. The best method to tame him is to sit on top of a nearby tree, place your trap, and fly directly straight up to aggro him, fall onto your trap at the top of the tree. There are a few other taming challenges for some pets, but they all require you to use your hunter skills creatively. And finally, the biggest pet change ever to pets was implemented in Cataclysm. The removal of Eyes of the Beast. Eyes of the Beast allowed you to take control of your pet and do fun stuff. But Blizzard hates fun stuff, so they took it out of spite. In Mist, hunter pets underwent another change, but very minor compared to other expansions. All pets still have a focus dump and special ability buff/debuff, but all the PvP ones were nerfed heavily by doubling their already long cooldowns and making pet swaps extremely difficult. Also, you can't abandon pets in Arena anymore. Blizzard went ahead and just gave hunters a pet for nearly every single buff or debuff in the game. Hunters can even battle res now. Also, they finally gave Spore Bats a useful ability in the form of a 5% spell haste buff. Pets no longer have talent trees, like players, and instead just get all of their special abilities they used to get with the talent trees when they pick a pet spec. Also, all pets can now choose one of the 3 specs, allowing you to bring any pet you want to raid. Mist also saw the introduction of a new hunter cooldown called Stampede, an ability that allows you to call all of your pets you have on you to attack whatever you do. For a short while at the beginning of Mist, this ability was bugged in PvP and pets summoned did 100% of the normal damage and made it the strongest cooldown in the game. Also, for a short while, the pets summoned with this ability would actually use their special abilities. Now they just auto-attack. In order to add to the special taming challenges added in Cata, in Mist, the special taming challenge involves looking for tracks of the rare pet and following them like a real hunter. Once the tracks end, you need to cast Flare in order to see the pet. Then simply put a hunter's mark on it to keep it visible and tame away. And that's it for the history of hunter pets. Finding the information for this video was way harder than I thought it would be, and took me nearly 7 hours of research just to get all the facts. So it is possible that I might have missed some major stuff or got a fact or two wrong. If I did, just let me know in the comments. Also, if you have an interesting idea for another one of these history videos, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to pick one at random from my idea list.